Welcome to this explainer. There's a really fascinating paradox in modern web design right now. Have you ever noticed how our absolute obsession with pixel perfection and mathematically flawless grids often ends up totally alienating the exact humans we're actually trying to engage? Today, we're going to tear down that sterile digital environment and look at a better way to build.
So why do these mathematically flawless websites often feel, well, kind of cold and impersonal? It actually comes down to evolutionary biology. Our brains evolved in the natural world, and in nature, absolute perfection simply doesn't exist. Because of our evolutionary wiring, when we get dropped into these hypersterile, perfectly symmetrical digital spaces, our brains subconsciously perceive them as artificial, and honestly, sometimes even stressful. We're fundamentally mismatched with the digital environments we've built.
To fix this fundamental mismatch, we really need to shift our mindset away from the cold reality of our modern UI tools. Instead, we're looking at Wabi-Sabi. Rooted in Zen Buddhism, this isn't just some passing design trend. It's a whole philosophy that finds true beauty in the imperfect, the impermanent, and the incomplete. Think about it like the warmth of a textured, handmade clay mug compared to a blindingly white, rigid digital grid.
Here is our roadmap for the explainer today. We'll start with the flaw of perfection, look at Wabi-Sabi versus minimalism, explore 7 specific UI and UX principles, and wrap up with biophilic design and SEO.
All right, part 1, Wabi-Sabi versus minimalism.
Now, a lot of people mix these two up, but they are very different concepts. Minimalism is largely a Western movement. It's all about reducing objects down to their pure essential function, essentially celebrating the flawless machine, like a brand new stark white smartphone that's trying its hardest to defeat time. Wabi-Sabi, on the other hand, is Japanese. It doesn't reduce down to function, it distills down to character. It celebrates authenticity and organic flaws. So instead of trying to defeat time, Wabi-Sabi completely embraces it, kind of like how the art of kintsugi highlights the cracks in aged pottery. Basically, minimalism is about perfection, while Wabi-Sabi is all about authenticity.
Moving right along to part 2, the 7 aesthetic principles.
Our very first principle is Kanso, which translates to simplicity. But listen, it's really vital to understand that Kanso isn't just about making a page bare just for the heck of it. It's about deliberately eliminating clutter and removing the non-essential stuff so that your core message actually has more power. In a world completely saturated with digital noise, applying Kanso is literally a form of respect for your user's attention. So what does this look like in practice? Well, in web design, we bring Kanso to life through minimalist landing page layouts. This means you need to aggressively strip away the noise. Focus entirely on a single, clear call to action, utilizing generous white space or negative space to honestly and directly guide the user's eye. That means no banners, absolutely no frantic pop-ups, and no distracting social widgets. Just clean, clear, and direct communication.
Next up, we have Fukinsei. This is the principle of asymmetry and irregularity, and honestly, it's a massive one. If you look at nature, it is perfectly balanced, sure, but it is never perfectly symmetrical. Think of a jagged coastline or the uneven rim of a ceramic bowl. Fukinsei is the outright rejection of rigid, artificial symmetry in favor of a dynamic, natural, and organic balance.
For all you UI developers out there, the crucial point here is executing Fukinsei by explicitly and consciously breaking that rigid template mold. We do this by utilizing asymmetrical CSS grid or flexbox compositions. So instead of a boring, perfectly mirrored 50-50 column split, you build a 60-40 or maybe a 65-35 layout. You might place an image slightly off-center. This kind of controlled irregularity actually forces the user's brain to engage with the design, rather than just glazing over another predictable, boring corporate layout.
To build out the rest of our UI toolkit, let's rapid fire through the other 5 principles. We have Shibui, which is simple beauty, meaning muted palettes, avoiding loud neon colors. Then there's Shizen, or naturalness, applied through earthy tones, photorealistic linen backgrounds, and subtle CSS noise textures. Yugen means subtle grace, inviting curiosity through suggestive imagery and layered typography. Datsuzoku brings freedom from convention with unexpected, non-standard navigation. And finally, Seijuku creates active tranquility through generous CSS padding, making the user feel calm and focused.
When we drill down to the actual component level, this Wabi-Sabi approach literally changes everything. You're going to want to abandon those cold, purely geometric fonts for humanist sans serifs that mimic the slight variations of a human hand. Definitely ditch the airbrushed stock models for authentic, unpolished photography bathed in natural light. Soften up those aggressively sharp buttons with a slight CSS border radius,
and completely replace rigid, one-pixel line breaks with hand-drawn SVG brushstrokes, it makes a huge difference.
Which brings us to part 3, biophilic design and SEO impact.
You might be wondering, okay, but how does this actually help my business metrics? Well, it connects directly to biophilic design, which is our innate, evolutionary need to connect with the controlled chaos and fractal patterns found in nature. By replacing stressful artificial grids with a natural Wabi-Sabi environment, you're creating a demonstrably better user experience. You get a significantly lower bounce rate because tranquility makes the user feel safe. Plus, you gain much higher time on page because an uncluttered layout encourages deep reading. Guys, these aren't just nice-to-haves. These are massive, tangible SEO signals telling Google your site is a premium, high-quality resource.
So, I want to leave you with a bit of a challenge to wrap things up. Take a look at your own digital spaces today. Look at your homepage. Can you find just one perfectly centered, mathematically flawless element? Try applying the principle of Fukinsei to make it intentionally asymmetrical. Just offset it a tiny bit. And then watch how that single, authentic act of imperfection brings your entire page to life. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.